this is the perfect amount. Well, hello. Today I'm so excited. We are going to dive in to something maybe some of you are very familiar with, and then maybe not. We're going to be cooking some Canadian classics. So stay tuned for some delicious treats that you might wow your guests with. And if you've had these before, let me know how these stack up against your recipes. So before I even get my apron on, I am going to get a couple of things going. I am making some recipes that require some chilled butter. I was worried for a second that my son who cooks, who you may have heard me talk about, that he had done something with my butter. But what I like to do is weigh my butter. Weighing things is just the absolute best. So what I need to do, we're making a pie crust, some pie dough, and I'm also making something with a delicious base that needs some chilled dough. So first we're gonna measure that out.
If we have never met before, my name is Robin, and I am just a girl who loves to cook and bake. I also have a channel called Minimalist Home. I'm also a nurse. I am a mom and a wife, and I love eating well. I love eating healthy. However, since it is Christmas, I definitely like to indulge a bit.
Okay, I'm gonna put this in the freezer. This is always how I start. Oh my gosh, I had just cleaned this freezer and now it's so messy again. Anyway, I'm gonna perch that in there. Whenever I'm making pie dough, I like to have the butter like not frozen, but very cold. And that is going to be what we're doing for the next recipe. But now let's get to the first recipe. So the first recipe for our Canadian treats, I don't know if this one is actually Canadian, but it is from the Best of Bridge cookbook. And I don't think I can find that to link. So I will put this website on my website, put this recipe on my website. And it is so good. And it starts with a delicious, sort of like crumbly, biscuity base. So we start with some flour, and then we are going to add some butter, half a cup of butter. And we want it chilled, which is why we're doing this first. So I'm gonna plop that there. And I know that half a cup of butter is 113 grams. I have the measurements on my fridge here, right here. Because I like to know flour, butter, sugar, brown sugar. It just makes life so much easier because weighing things is just so much more accurate, and I feel like things turn out better. I love butter. So now I'm gonna put that there, get the rest of the ingredients in, and then we are going to cut it in. And one of the things to do to make parchment paper easier to handle.
While I scrunch this paper, I am begging if you do not judge me for that fridge. There are 4 of us living here, and a lot of people, they put things back where they don't go. It's actually not as bad as it looks.
Is to crinkle it up, and then it's really easy to put into your dish.
Now, I forgot to put my microphone on when I took off my sweater and I put on my apron. So I am just getting the crust ready for this delicious, delicious recipe of the cranberry squares. And I need to make a crust. So I am cutting in the butter using this pastry cutter and knives. And then I realized, hey, as a short girl, I may as well just go to the table because this is easier for me to like push down. I'm 5'1", so I am just not tall enough. And continuing to make this crust, I just then am putting it in the bottom of this pan and pressing it in. And I often will like use my hand, but then I feel like it's better to use something like this, the bottom of this measuring cup, which helps it get a lot more level and smooth. So sort of like between my hand and this, it's really helpful. Now, I want to chat quickly about why it is so lovely to make sure if you like to bake or even buy, and you're somebody that eats this kind of food, that you will indulge a little bit each season. Now, for me, this is something I've actually been making this for close to 20 years. People absolutely love it. It is so good. And it's a real sort of sentimental-ish food for a lot of us. And on my other channel, Minimalist Home, I talk about decluttering and minimalism and all of the things because a lot of us struggle to let things go. And this is one example of a way that we can just sort of touch on the past a little bit and still, not have a bunch of clutter all over. Like, I can make this recipe and one day maybe my kids will, or my grandkids or whatever, and we can all enjoy it without like having a bunch of extra clutter around. And what I love about making this recipe is that it is sort of like something that could potentially become some kind of like heirloom recipe. And it's just, I like a little bit of tradition, and it's Canadian, or at least the best of Bridge ladies are of the best of Bridge. They are, and the rest of these are so good as well. So on a broader scale, I love to, make the odd Canadian dish. I mean, we're such a mix. There's, of course, the Aboriginal. There are Scottish, like so many different things. Like, we are a real mix here in North America. But there are even things, of course, Americans have of their own, and Canadians too. What are some of your favorites from where you live?
So I'm making Nanaimo Bars, which I'm on Vancouver Island, and this is where they were invented, okay? So, graham crackers. Now, if you're going to use graham cracker crumbs, I think it's great. I mean, you don't have to, and if you don't have the ability, don't worry about it. But if you do have the ability, crumble them yourself. These are... Where did the mister go? It's just such a recipe. Where did the mister go? Anyway, I'm just going to open this up and weigh them. Now, my recipe is for 1 3/4 cups. I'm going to use just about the original recipe. I'm changing it slightly, not too much. But we're going to weigh them. And I am really struggling with the running back in it. I need 218 grams. So I'm going to weigh, let's see. How much is this? Do I need more than that? So I need about 1 3/4 cup. I'm so glad my kids did not see that this exists. Actually, I got one of my kids came up. I'm glad my youngest didn't see that these exist, because this child loves graham crackers. When I buy him the s'mores in the summer, we never get s'mores because he eats them all. All right. We're almost there. And I am going to measure it out also, but it's just very helpful to have the weights. Okay. So I just made the graham cracker crumbs, and I am going to quickly go ahead, make my pie crust, because it needs to chill for like half an hour before you roll it out, just to let the dough and the gluten kind of relax a little bit. It's also nice if it's a tiny bit firmer. Going to use this for the Nanaimo bars. We're going to do that. But first, I'm going to put the cranberry bars in the oven one more time. I just have one more step for that, and it's going to be so good.
All right, so just making the rest of this delicious filling for these cranberry bars. They're so good. I actually have to hide things from my kids and my husband. And I'm going to be honest with you, my mom is coming to stay with our boys for a couple of days because my husband and I are going to Vancouver, and I absolutely love going there. It is just a fun little getaway for us. I mean, the kids right now, they're 15 and 17, and we're going to see our 19-year-old when we're over in Vancouver. So it's not like you're like leaving babies. Like, really, I feel like they all just get to hang out and they all have fun and treats and snacks and all of the things. So speaking of treats and snacks, I have explained in these videos where I hide my treats, which is in a big broccoli bag from Costco. I buy frozen broccoli from Costco, which, by the way, I highly recommend. And I keep it. I keep my frozen goodies. I put them in the broccoli bag, and the family is none the wiser. The problem, though, is I think my mom might know now. Oh, it's not my secret anymore. Although I think I can trust her. I am going to say, don't, make sure nobody knows about the broccoli bag. I also, funny story. I got to tell you about this cookbook, and then I'm going to tell you another funny story.
Look how beat up this cookbook is. I love it so much. If you can get your hands on the best of the best of the Bridge, do it.
So because my husband loves chocolate so much, and he is an absolutely wonderful guy, but he can't help himself. And he would just be like, oh, I'll just have one or two. And my sister-in-law, his sister, she is a flight attendant, or I don't even know what they like to be called now. I think that's right? But anyway, she's a flight attendant, and she flies to Hawaii sometimes and would get some delicious macadamia nut chocolates that were so good. And I hid a few in a bag because I was like, I'm the type that well, first of all, as a lady, I am trying to keep my figure with all of these goodies. I really try to pace myself, but also I put some in a bag, and buried it in our flour. Okay. It was so well hidden. Nobody would have ever known. But then I had told my friend, and she told my husband. So there you go. This is why we can't have secrets. Please, guys, keep my secret. And as I was chattering away, I was making a pie crust for the delicious butter tarts. Just like that, the delicious cranberry bars are done. They smell amazing. They almost smell like marshmallows. Like, look at the top. Oh, so good. I'm just set that there. And now let's get to the Nanaimo bars. So I have to show you this cookbook I have had since basically I got married, and it is actually, no. I think I have had it since before I got married. I think I've had it for like 23 years. And that is where I have the processor pastry. And I'm gonna put my pastry in the fridge. This cling film I write the date since June 12th, 2018, and the cutter thing is really showing it. So this pastry that I am making, the perfect processor pastry, I have it linked in the same blog post as my butter tart recipe. It is so good, and it's from that cookbook, Canadian Living, and it is just so easy. And once I've got them all it all mixed up, and you saw me make it, it was super easy, then you just get it into discs and pop it in the fridge. I got my trio. I just love it. So now it is time to prepare the base for the Nanaimo bars. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Nanaimo bars, some people, they even have trouble spelling it, Nanaimo. And that is a city where I live on Vancouver Island. And it's funny because I used to work as a police dispatcher, and we would get calls from all over like Canada from alarm companies or from the US. And a lot of people they couldn't spell it or they couldn't pronounce it because it is a bit of a funny pronunciation or spelling or whatever. So I'm just mixing up the base. Oh, but my point is these are absolutely a delicious treat. And if you've never had them, you will love them. You will make them and people will be like, oh my gosh, these are so good if they've never had them. I think that they're probably a lot more common in Western Canada where they are from. They truly are from the city. And I actually just modified the traditional recipe with my own. So just to say, I right now just melted the butter and mixed in the chocolate and everything on a double boiler, took it off just to control things. And it is absolutely wonderful. It is so good. And it's got a sort of chocolatey base and you don't bake it. The eggs are cooked while you're making that process, but in a really gentle way, like we're tempering them and whatever. And I just do the same crinkle paper trick and mix in some yummy things on the bottom. So this is where I am putting in those breadcrumbs. And I made those before I did the pastry just because I didn't want any of the pastry getting in, I suppose, just because of the small amount of raw egg and flour. But so it's got the graham cracker crumbs, and I like to put in walnuts. The original recipe, I can't remember if it calls for almonds, but I really like walnuts in baking. Not on their own. They're a bit too bitter on their own, but in baking I do. And of course, it's got a bit of coconut, as you can see. And it's funny because my middle son does not like coconut. And he was like, oh my gosh, you can't even taste the coconut. These are so good. And then I just do the same old thing where I push it down and just make it really yummy. And like the base is super duper simple. Now, all of these treats are really, really good. However, I have to say the Nanaimo bars, I think, are the best. I mean, it's hard to say, but everybody likes them all. But right now we are making the filling. It is so yummy, so decadent. It's almost like a frosting, but it also has a bit of custard powder in it that turns it this gorgeous color and gives it a really good flavor. And then it is fun, and it is time to put it on. And oh my God, is that not just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? So tell me, if you were to make these Nanaimo bars, where would you take them? Would you take them to like a work lunch or a lunch with your friends or a dinner with your friends or something? I mean, you got to make these. Would you serve them at your Christmas dinner or like an appetizer party like I have? Like, what would you do? Where would you serve these? And this is not it. There is still one more delicious layer to come. However,
oh, it's so yummy. Okay, now I'm gonna stick this in the freezer just so it chills and I can put the chocolate on. Okay, don't tell my grandma, but I'm not washing the bowl between the custard icing and the butter tart mix. The only thing that is not the same ingredient is the custard powder, and there's only a tiny bit, and it really is kind of like the same ingredients anyway. So butter, and then we're gonna mix in some brown sugar. One thing that is not even in the recipe is to soak the raisins in water. And that is something that I always remember just seeing my grandma doing in the kitchen, because then they're not going to absorb any of the moisture and make it like super dry. So it just helps plump them up just a little bit. So I've had these soaking for about close to 2 hours. I'm draining them now, and then I'm just going to let them sit on a paper towel while I get the rest of the ingredients in the filling. Don't tell my grandma I free poured that.
now you might say, oh, no, your grandma would have measured with her heart. She would not have been all uptight about measuring, but she was really good about like following the directions of measuring. Now look how gorgeous and fluffy this filling is. That is like simply eggs, butter, sugar, and vanilla. Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And then just mixing in all of these yummy parts. So delicious. And now, of course, it's time for the yummy part of, or the fun part, honestly, of just rolling out the dough. This takes me back to the Play-Doh days. When my kids were younger, they always wanted a little bit to play with and a little bit to pretend to roll out. And I actually really enjoy it. One of my favorite things is to make pies. So I like to roll out the dough. I do like the tarts, but I think I like a pie more. And I was considering making more of a butter tart pie, but I thought, no, I wanted to do it the traditional way. In our family, I had mentioned my dad would do it, and he would before we would go away, quite often he would make a bunch of butter tarts, and I didn't even think I liked them that much. I was like, anytime they were at somebody's house, I'd maybe eat. At my grandma's house, I'd usually eat one or two, and I'd be like, okay, that's good. And I might put some whipping cream on, because my brother would have the mincemeat tarts that my grandma would make, and he really liked those. And she had, I believe, the whipping cream for those tarts, but so good, even with whipping cream. And once I tried these tarts, oh my gosh, they were absolutely divine.
So I have not made these butter tarts before. That was usually what my dad or my grandma did. And it says to put 2 tablespoons in. I mean, I may as well. I know my grandma's were always really small, and these are really small. The thing I used to cut them was just a measuring cup. I do have a round cutter that I could have used, but I was lazy and I didn't want to get it out. So I'm just going to eyeball it and we'll see how they turn out. And I am really excited. It's a really good thing I greased this because I have a feeling this filling is going to just puff up and then it's going to shrink down. But because it's full of sugar, it's going to stick to the sides. So we'll see. It doesn't matter. They're going to taste good. So it says bake till brown. I don't know how long that is. I'm guessing at least 20 minutes, so I'll keep my eye on it.
There is just something so sweet about that in an older recipe. Bake until brown. I'm sure Grandma knew exactly how long. So now we are making the final topping for the Nanaimo bars. And what we need to do is to temper the chocolate in the microwave.
Ooh, this is very close. 30 seconds, so I'm gonna do like 15. This will do it. But that's okay. Whatever. They'll taste good.
Now, I may have heated it slightly too much. I think it seized just a little bit, but it was still really, really good. And the problem, of course, is that the custard and the base had been in the freezer to chill, and I had maybe chilled them just a little bit long because
it's melting. The chocolate's hardening and the custard is melting. Ah, it's still gonna be good. Oh my God. Ooh, wait till we cut it. Okay, let's see how these butter tarts are going to turn out. In the meantime, doesn't it feel good to put things away?
Now, I have a question for you. Do you enjoy cleaning up after cooking or whatever? I mean, for me, I kind of do if I'm sort of cleaning as I go. When I do one of these cooking days, quite often I get out a lot of my ingredients ahead of time, and it is sort of satisfying just to put things away, or often I will put things away or clean as I go. One of my sons, he actually helps clean up after these big long cooking days, which is really fun. But there's something so satisfying about a big cleanup after you are cooking and playing a little bit of dishwasher Jenga. And this is sort of one of those things where it's like, do you hate laundry and you like folding, or do you like folding but you don't like putting away? It's just one of those things.
It looks like somebody got to that before I could cut it. I'm really excited to dig in. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, the perfect Nanaimo bar. Look at that butter tart. This is the perfect amount. Look at all of these yummy treats. Nanaimo bars, butter tarts, and these delicious cranberry squares. Last time I made these delicious treats. I also have done some turkey dinner baking. Stay tidy and mighty. I hope something great happens for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.